Okay, everybody,
Put the button on, yeah, I turned it off. Oh, there we go.
did everybody get your first page? There should be first page.
Yes.
And the first page is the supply list. There's also two other sheets that go with it. And those sheets are the ones that you'll be using to sew on. You'll put the fabric on there, okay? So I thought I'd go through this list so that we can just kind of explain a few things. First of all, someone asked me, how many people here have never done paper piecing? A few of you? Okay, good. So I'll probably talk to you. The rest of you, if you've done a little bit, that's great. If you've done a lot, you're probably not here, because I think I see some other people out there who aren't. So anyway, first of all, my goal when I teach paper piecing, and I've never had this large of a crowd, so I always kind of 6 people or 12 people, I think maybe 15 at the most, and you might have to help each other a little bit because it's kind of a one-on-one when you're learning this. And so basically your sewing machine, your standard foot, but you brought up the open toe foot.
Yes.
If you've got that attachment, it really does help because you can kind of see where you're going a little bit. The only problem is if your machine doesn't have a pretty good presser, if you're not able to change the presser foot and put a little more pressure on it, it'll kind of move around a little bit because the paper's probably going to be slippery. So just kind of keep that in mind. The other things. Oh, I sew with a number 10, and they're so fine and fragile that when they do break, because you always break us, they sound like a crystal glass breaking. So most people don't use those because the machine, you can't use your threader on your machine. The threader's too large to get into the hole of the 10. So I might get too old before I might get to the point where I can't thread my own, and I'll be disappointed about that. I'll try to figure out how to do that. But right now I can kind of just go up to it and slip it in. I'm so used to doing that. But I also use Aurifil.
This is a 10 right here. I think I brought some examples just so you can see. It's like a 1080 needle.
It's very fine.
They're very fine. Yeah, usually we'll use like the 14 or something.
12 or
14. But yeah, this one for paper piecing, they're 80 12.
80-12 is good, and 80, and then 70-10. Yeah.
Oh, 70-10
And
real
the thing is, it makes really fine little, holes, and so you could just follow that line. And that's the whole point of paper piecing, is to get the most perfect points that you can. That's the thing you walk away with that you're happy about. And we have some samples up here.
Yeah, I just want to add this about paper piecing because I just wanted to get a little information to share with you guys. Paper piecing was something that became popular in the 18th and 19th century, but there's actually records of foundation paper piecing that go back to the 15th century. There was
interesting.
a cushion that was found.
Wow.
That was interesting.
I thought I invented all this.
Right, but it was like this foundation, it's called foundation paper piecing because it gives you that foundation to be able to build on for like patchwork, and especially in cases like this. I'm sorry, Pat, I didn't mean to.
No, I really want you to do this.
Especially in certain scenarios like this mariner's compass that Pat is working on. It has these points that if you actually piece this, it would be, I don't want to say impossible, but it would be very difficult to be able to get that type of precision with just sewing, because I don't know, I have a very difficult time sewing a straight line. So when you have paper piecing, you can get tiny points like that, little tiny points, and it really allows you to build a bunch of different fabrics and get really precise patterns with very little effort. That's what I like about it, because it's it looks really impressive, but once you get the hang of it, it's really easy.
And people who haven't done it, they'll look at it and just think you're a genius, because how to do that, But I'm going to show my Ginny Beyer quilt that I did. I bought the kit in 1997 or 1998, something like that. And a little story goes with it, but I should wait probably until I show it to you. Should I show it to you?
Yeah, let's show it. And this too, what I like about this is a really simple project that we're going to look at today, but it really does set the foundation for you to be able to do all these cool, really complex looking patterns. Not to say that this isn't complex, but because this did, I know, and I want to share this. A friend shared this with me, and she said when you're paper piecing, that it really slows you down. So wherever you're at. But you know what? It slows you down, but it gives you these results that are just absolutely stunning.
Wow.
So there's a little story, it's probably a long story, but I'll make it short. I bought this at a show, and it was like they were just starting to have shows then. It was very rare, and I bought this and thought, oh my God, I spent a lot of money on this. I think it was like $120 at the time, you know? I think now they're worth about $300, $400, $500, $600 maybe. And she was using what she called eyelash, and she stopped using this, and with the kits that came out 2 years later or so, she run out of this, and so it's kind of a plain black. So I'm really, oopsie. Wow, looks like some, oh no. No. Yeah. So anyway, she had changed it a little bit, but she's kept these really pretty colors here. And it's called Moon Glow. And if you show this at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon when the sun's kind of going down and it's natural light, it just is iridescent. It's just really beautiful. So anyway, I started out with it, and some of the easy ones, this one, there's an easy one at the top. And I was doing stencils, and I thought, you know, this is going fine. And then I started looking at this one and that one, I'm thinking, oh my God, because you still had stencils, you know. Then somebody came up with a class in paper piecing, and I went, oh, I think I ought to try that. And so I did, and it made just all the difference in the world. So then, show the log cabins. Now, there's a tiny little sentence in the directions that would have helped me out a lot, but I went ahead and I did all the log cabins, and I thought I was finished with the blocks, and I put it up on the wall, and it just didn't look right. But if you look at it, they're mirror images. They're mirror image, like this one. Because everybody knows mirror image, but if you haven't used it much, you know, this one goes this way, so the purple has to be over there, and this one, the purple has to be over here.
Okay.
So I had to take 6 of them and tear it all apart and put it back together, and the fabric when she first put out was kind of fragile. So I had to be really careful. But anyway, I just love this thing.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. It just shows you what you can do. You go from hardly knowing what you're doing. You know, I was just barely starting to quilt and sew, and I've been sewing a lot of clothes. So anyway, thanks. You all got your little picture on there, so we got this one here. I actually designed this butterfly because I wanted to have something that was, thank you. Oh yeah. That was easy and simple, so that people beginning in paper piecing. So this is like the first one.
Vanna White.
So right here on all 4 of these, basically all you gotta do is tip this over, sew this on, tip this over, sew it on, same here, all around. This one, this one, this one, and this one. So it's fairly easy. And once you start and you do one, the second one's gonna be a little easier, and it'll get easier and easier. And then it's a little tricky when you start putting your points together because you want to, that's me again, I'm touching. So you put you take your back side of your one piece that you're trying to join these two, and you take and you put your pin in here and you pull it through here and you lay it down on your machine, and that's where you use a stiletto. If you've ever used a stiletto, you can't go back. I mean, it's like a third hand. I don't, if I don't have a stiletto there when I'm with, you know, I feel like I can't sew. It's sort of like your knee lift. Once you get used to that, you know, your knee just goes.
You just get used to it. You know what I noticed with the paper piecing too is that, this thing's terrible, is that when you use a stiletto, I tried not using it, and then when you use it, it really allows you to guide it also.
Right up under the needle.
Right under the needle, because of course the more you sew on the straight line that you have on your template, it's like, of course your points are going to be straighter, you know, now.
Yeah, it just really helps you push that through. Otherwise, you're kind of, the other things I said, pressure on all the machines, and Manny can help you with this, but in fact, he looked at mine and said, you don't have yours right. So, thank you, Manny. And if you give it a little more pressure, that'll keep that so that it'll guide it through. And the paper's a little slippery, so sometimes it'll slip around on you. And so anyway.
So we have a little demo and
Yeah.
start putting some paper pieces together. I need a pattern. If you want, we'll cut. Did you bring a color?
I have.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've got a
I
couple.
was like, I think I ended up using mine, and I think I left part of it at home.
Oh, actually.
Oh, okay. Oh,
I knew I had something that we should start with. And then,
ta-da! There we go.
some of you, we noticed that not a lot of you have your machines here today or don't have them ready, so
So it's
I
gonna
don't
be
know.
a demonstration.
Yeah, but basically, yeah, you're going to, let me take this one off.
You want me to hold that?
Yeah. Okay. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna always, the print side's out on one side, and your fabric is on the other side. And I always try to tell people this little trick that I use, and they kind of doubt it when I start, but once I get going, they go, oh yeah, that did work. If you lay this piece, once you got your first square down, if you lay it down on the table, I don't know if you can see this, but if you lay it down on the table and then just peek under, oh, that's number 2, which is 1, 2, and always follow your numbers too, because they're telling you that because when you grow into more patterns, you'll have them overlapping each other, and you don't want to put one of them on top, you'll be ripping because you got to put this other one under it. You get what I'm saying?
That numbering on any paper piecing is always very important. You always
Yeah.
want to follow it. And any kind of pattern will always have like some kind of number on it. You see it's all like sequence, and you always want to follow the sequence of whatever it calls
Yeah.
for. Or else it'll throw, you can probably finish it, but it's going to throw your pattern off. It's
Yeah.
not going to look like what you began
And
sewing.
sometimes you'll look at it and you go, why do they're exactly the same, and why do they have a 2 on this side and a 3 on this side? But the whole idea is to get that looking so that your one paper is always following all around in your parts. So follow the numbers, so that's really important. Then I try to tell people, like, this is 1, 2, and 3 here. So if you've got your fabric down, and now you're gonna go for number 2, and so place this on the table, and then peek under, like when you play cards, and you wanna see if an ace under there or not.
You can also,
And you only got a
use the light table,
2.
too. You want to show them with the light table pad, like how you can also, this is something that we
Yes.
have mentioned about being an optional item or an
Yeah.
optional tool. There's a lot of optional tools for paper piecing. One's the light table that makes it, this isn't necessary, but if you have it already in your arsenal, it's cool. You don't have to go run out and get one, but it really allows you, once like you place your paper on top,
You can
you
see,
can see exactly where the placement of your paper
like
is.
where
Okay.
you're,
Especially if you're doing something like that quilt that I had, where I had like specific pieces like right in the center that I wanted highlighted. It really works for something like that where you're fussy cutting and you really want to like align things in a certain spot on your paper piecing pattern.
Is that what you used when you made this?
No, I didn't. I just eyeballed it. But yeah, I just eyeballed
when
it.
you're eyeballing is fine, but make your paper, your pattern, or your fabric bigger. Don't try to cut, when you're learning, don't try to cut an inch off or a half an inch, or get it exact.
That's very important because with paper piecing, it's not, I don't want to say it's not the best use of fabric, but there's a lot of like extra, especially when you're getting to really learn it, because when you start cutting too close to the bone, really too close to whatever the size that you're eventually going to end up with, it's the worst when you're working on a project that's really involved, and then it's like an 1/8 or a 1/4 inch short, and you're like, oh, and then you have to take everything out, and then once, paper piecing, they recommend that you take down your stitch length to probably like a 2-point or 2.0.
Yeah, some people have you can take it way down. I don't do that. In fact, I can say,
1.5.
pardon me?
1.5.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit short, not to disagree with you, but everybody likes what they like, but I think the normal is 2.5, isn't it?
2.2.
2.2, what is the normal?
Between 1.5 and 2.0 is the norm.
No, for stitch length.
Stitch length.
For paper piecing.
What's a normal
Like the
stitch?
automatic that you come, that turns on
Mine's
with
like
your
a two,
machine.
mine's a 2.2.
Mine's a 2.5.
I think two point,
So something to keep in mind, there's like two different kinds of papers that we passed out. There's one that was
that's
like,
true too.
there's this perfect paper piecing paper that they sell for foundation paper piecing. This is really useful because you can actually get this and leave it in your pattern so you don't have to rip it out. But it's recommended that if you use this, that you do not necessarily have to lessen your stitch length so much. Because, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's right, but you still have to lessen it because when you go to rip off the paper, pardon me?
You don't. I use that all the time.
Really?
Yeah, they actually recommend, per the instructions, they say that if you're using this perfect paper piecing paper, sorry, it's like a
Yeah.
Tongue twister.
Yeah, so if you technically use this, they say per the instructions that you don't necessarily have to lessen your stitch length because you're going to leave it in. The thing is though,
Oh, you're leaving it in?
yeah, because you leave this in. You don't necessarily have to leave it in, but you can. And if you're going to be using something like, this is another product, this is a paper piecing paper. It's like a newsprint. Some of the copies were also made with this.
Yeah.
This is the one where you should lessen your stitch length so it's easier to rip off the paper. Because that large paper piecing quilt that I had out here, I used a regular stitch length and paper that was similar to this, and you really have to be careful when you're ripping the paper off because you don't want to start loosening your stitches when you're ripping the paper out. So, yes.
Well, a few years ago when we went through this, Gloria Molina told us to use tamal wrappers. Is that still?
You know what, if you can't get that, see, what's very convenient with this, if you want to run this through your printer, it's very easy. You know, with tamal paper, you probably have to cut it down to 8.5 by 11 inches. It's very kind of thin and slippery. It probably would work, but it would probably be a little problematic in your printer, depending on what kind of printer you have. This is, I recommend if you really find that you really enjoy paper piecing, it's something that you want to do, I would get something like this. This is great too. You can also buy something called newsprint. It's very affordable. They sell it on Amazon. Yes, Patty?
The thing I like about the top one, what do you call that?
The perfect paper piecing
That you
paper.
leave in.
Because if your pattern is bigger than 8.5 by 11, you can stick those together. I made big pieces like that,
Yeah.
and I sew those together.
Right.
I run them through the printer, and then I sew it together, and it gives you a big piece. The second thing is those are translucent, so you can, when you flip it over to cut it, you can see where your 1/4 inch line is.
That's true. That's true because it is like, you know, of course, like if you have a light table, you see that even with that newsprint, you could see through it.
Yeah.
But if you don't, you're right. That paper's very easy to use. It's very forgiving. Also, if you have to pull stitches out of it, you know, yeah, this is a good product. Get it now while you can because Joanne's is like, you know, I don't know what's going on
What's
with
happening
them.
with it?
Yeah, it's like we don't know what's going on. You know what, vellum might be a little thick
Yeah.
and real slippery too. to
Yeah,
run through
keep
your
in
printer.
mind your needles too. They don't like anything sticky, they don't, too thick, especially if you are using the finer needles like I do. So, the other thing about, nobody had a light box when I was going unless you had a light bulb and you know, had this
Yeah,
box
window.
underneath, you know, right? But, engineers had them, but, you know, we didn't. So, I'm getting used to this and I'm getting to the point where I really do like it. I had to kind of tell myself that this was something modern that I should probably do. But anyway, my husband went and bought one for me because he knew I wasn't gonna buy it. And I thought it was gonna be 60 or 70, but he actually found one for, I think, for $25. So you don't have to spend a lot of money. The problem is though, it doesn't stay charged. You gotta plug it in. You know, there's some things to it that it doesn't have. Mine doesn't have this nice little, looks like centimeters
Measuring.
on there.
I actually got that for Christmas from Manny.
Nice,
Thank you, Manny.
nice.
You can use your window too.
Yeah, you can use a window.
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
it's-
that's what we used to use.
Put it up.
It's very convenient to have
I
it.
used that before.
And then the other thing I really want to stress is, at least I do, I iron after every seam I make, every seam. Because you're doing this because you want the perfect seams, right? That's the point of this. And so if you iron them down, you're gonna get some really good looking things, especially when you start going, that's probably 100 pieces or so in that little small place. Yeah, probably.
Bless you.
At least this one is, yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Wow.
And so you get to putting that many pieces in a small area, you want them to be as flat as possible. And you can't use steam with paper underneath it, but every once in a while I flip that steam up just for a second, and nanosecond, and let it steam and get that really firm, you know.
I'll do desk press too. I'll spray it on my finger and then just tap it on the fabric, because once you start spraying, that like saturates your paper and it gets all
Yeah, you
wavy
can't
when you
really-
iron it. Yeah, not a good
really do
look.
that. So,
Not a good look at all.
I'm gonna take a peek at my notes because I wanna make sure I've got everything.
You know, I wanted to go over some of the optional things, Pat, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
the optional things that we had talked about.
We
So,
do, we got,
So we had talked about some of the specialty, you know.
okay, like there's a 1/4-inch ruler that people use. Like I said, I started out with none of these things, and I use a scissor, I cut it, and I know exactly what a 1/4 of an inch is, because I've been sewing so long. And really, it isn't gonna matter, but I figured out it does matter
It kind of does.
when you get your parts that you're trying to put together, and say you got 2 parts here, I take my pin, like I told you, and I find the perfect spot where this is gonna be joined, and then I find this one, and then I put these, angle them this way, so, because this way will pull it off the line. And I sew it.
Coordination.
Yeah, exactly, with my stiletto. Well, if you've got this perfect 1/4 inch, technically, you should be able to go find your dot here and just sew it, you know?
Yeah, it'll make sense once we get more into like the demonstration.
Show what it is.
But this is, they're very useful, you know, they allow you to kind of butt up against the fabric, kind of like this, if you can see that, and then see it's a
Yeah.
perfect 1/4 inch. So if you go ahead and you cut along this line,
It'll be a perfect-
you'll be left with a perfect 1/4 inch. And these are really, they come in different varieties. There's an add 3/8 depending on your project. You know, if anybody's familiar with the Dear Jane project, there's a lot of really small seams in that, and you would use something smaller, like add an 1/8 of an inch. But you know, there's like different varieties available, different sizes. I just brought the ones that I had at the house.
Yeah, good. I saw a 3/16 the other day.
Oh, really? No, I would have been buying that. I'd be like,
Yeah,
I
me
might need
neither.
that. Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to, and the other thing is, we'll go over some more of that.
Sure.
But batiks are your best fabric when you're learning, because batiks don't really have a right side. I can see it, but, you know, most people, first you start working batiks, you can't tell. So if you make a mistake and you put it on the wrong side, it's not gonna really matter much. Of course, if you use regular fabric, you know, you're gonna be able to tell. So I think being new, batiks are great, light box. Oh, paper piecing is great for angled pieces. There's a couple of things I did that was like it was a lighthouse, and it was tipped just a little bit, and it was pieced. Well, if you piece that, you don't know if you're gonna get the angle going up that way or down this way, you know, it's like really, you gotta figure it out, and it takes you a while to learn that. But if you're going paper piecing, you just do a little bit bigger piece and it goes where you need it and you trim it off and it's perfect, you know. So I really say that angled pieces are great. So then the other thing for many, I think somebody told me about a pen, no, I saw it. A pen that holds water with a foam tip.
Yeah,
And so
I
it's
didn't end
like-
up getting that after all.
Did you?
No, you know what? Because I just ripped it out. So
I know.
Yeah,
It's
when
like
you
when
see
you
that-
rip out these papers after you've sewn them on.
yeah, once you have this, like, see, this is one of the butterfly wings right here, and everything's already been sewed down on it, right? So you know, once you go ahead and you sew all your pieces together, you would be pulling this paper out. But like I said again, if you know, I didn't change my stitch length, you really have to be careful and put like pressure down on wherever your last stitch was, so you could kind of pull it out, so you don't start loosening your stitches. With that little pen, it's like it's almost like a glue pen, but it has water in it. So you just brush it along the seams, and then you can,
Makes
you know,
it soggy.
it makes it soggy and you pull it out. I didn't get that because, you know, yeah. I already got all this other crap at home.
What about like an old paintbrush?
Yeah, you could use like a paintbrush, probably like, yeah,
Thin.
just your finger with water on it too, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's just so it comes out easily, because you start seeing how it's like, you know, I don't know if you wanna pass that around so people can see.
I've really gotten so a lot of people don't, they just hate pulling the paper out, but I actually like it. It's sort of like mindless, you know?
You can have a party.
Yeah, it's just a paper pull.
Right?
You know, we're gonna tear out the inside. And then I tend to, because these are more tedious to do, I tend to start pulling out the middle ones that aren't gonna affect the outside when I go to, you know, sew these together. And I always make sure I leave my seam on the outside, leave those papers on, because that's gonna make it perfect when you put it up in the quilt. Let's see, the other thing is adhesive, fabric adhesive, and I think it just kind of.
No, I was gonna get a pattern so I can cut it. So.
Oh,
Yeah.
this way?
Is there an extra? Oh, here it is.
Oops.
Here, let me just take this. I'm sorry. I'm
That's
trying to be quick and I'm just like in the way.
Here, look. You just take that whole pile.
Sorry.
Oops. There you go.
Thank you.
And we're moving this besides, we got this ding ding going on. Okay, so, the other thing is fabric adhesive, and I've talked to several people about this, and I'm starting to think that this might be a good way for me to start my paper piecing, especially when you've got your main piece, and your main piece is maybe 3/4 of an inch, you know, it's like really, really tiny, and it just wants to move where it wants to go. And I pin mine, but when you get to that one, I'm really learning, I think that a drop of adhesive, you know, between the paper and that would probably be a great idea. Save you some headaches.
I use school glue sticks, cheap ones.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I'll use Scotch tape when I'm doing that
Yeah.
stuff. I just use like whatever Scotch tape or a pin, you know, something
whatever
that
just kind of holds it down.
Yeah, you just need something to hold it down in place.
Yeah, it kind of does go back to that, just like, oh, and tweezers. You cannot be without tweezers, and I spend money on my tweezers. I have them for years and years, but the tip has got to work, and it's got to be able to pinch those
Yeah.
pieces of paper out when you need
A good place to get tweezers too is Ross or TJ Maxx or Marshalls. You can always get like cheap tweezers, yeah. And
But be careful with the cheaper ones, because they might not, the points might not come close together.
oh
And
yeah.
I usually go to the drugstore or someplace like that.
I found that at the swap meet, sometimes there's a vendor that
Yeah.
only sells those cheap,
Yeah.
used ones.
And just be able to look at them and make sure you're gonna get a tight pull.
Yeah, we've been talking about stilettos a lot. Here's just an example of one.
Yeah.
This is my fave because it has a stiletto, it has a seam ripper, and then you can press down your seams with this. Or if you just have a chopstick or a skewer at home,
Yeah.
this works great for a stiletto.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
if
don't
you just
have
don't
to-
have, you don't have to have anything like super special, but you know,
You don't have to buy
if
special
you wanna go
stuff.
pro, you get this 4-in-1, like,
No,
do a whole bunch
I
of stuff.
panicked because they said Joann's was gonna be done, and this is where I buy my Joann's, and it's like $4.50. It's still that. Right now, you can spend $15 on rippers now, so. I went the other day and I got one. They do kind of dull after a while. But I love this one because to me, I can get a hold of it and I can get it under. And then always rip on the fabric side, don't rip on the paper side, because the paper pulls and, you know, will disintegrate. So anyway, that's mine, and this is my favorite stiletto. I did buy that brass one. I
Oh,
got
yeah, me
sucked
too.
into buying that one, and
Don't waste your money.
it doesn't have it's expensive, and it doesn't have a good handle. You know, this one's always going in with this, and it's something I live with, so.
Pat, can you repeat that thing about, you said when you're ripping off the paper, you rip out on the paper side and not the fabric side?
Yes.
On the fabric side?
Fabric side.
Okay, on the fabric side, okay.
kid fabric, you know.
So it's on the
fabric at
reverse?
Yeah, I
No.
thought I had, here, I can whip.
home. I think we're ready for a little demo so we can see where we get started, don't you think?
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, I don't have the
Don't
fabric
rip,
though.
don't rip on the paper side here. There's your seam,
Okay,
tip it over. Oops, and see here, it's a little hard to do, but, it doesn't do that. Here it is, right here. You're gonna rip here on fabric. Just, the point is, the paper will tear, and then your pattern. Oh, which brings to mind, make a copy of your pattern. It's your pattern. You're not gonna be selling it to anybody. You're not gonna be doing what you're not supposed to do. But if you ruin this part, then you've always got your pattern to go back to and make a new pattern for yourself. And it will happen, believe me. Because when you're cutting off, when you are done putting this seam on, and I'll do this now before we get too much further, and we're gonna cut this off, you're gonna kind of make sure you got your pattern down, you're gonna make sure your fabric is down, and you're gonna cut across there with your 1/4 inch ruler,
Ruler.
or just scissors. I cut with scissors, and I swear, I don't know how many times I've cut my fabric off, or I've cut my pattern off, you know, just, it's easy to do.
Yeah, too easy.
I think we're done with things that make life easier here. Light box, yep. Tiny pins, I already talked about. You have tiny pins. These little glass-headed tiny pins.
Applique pins?
Yeah, I think they are. They're very fine, they bend real easy, and they poke you real easy, so.
Like, well, those are the ones that make you cry when
That's
you
right.
poke yourself.
So those are really great, but it's not necessary. But if you get too big, I've noticed some people have those designer pins with the flowers on the end, and they're so thick that you're going through paper, and if you're trying to go on your line where you're gonna sew,
Like these.
yeah, and they're lovely for lots of other things, but not
These are
for
good, the
paper.
real thin ones with
Yeah.
the flat head.
Yeah.
Because when you have like paper, it's
That's
like
real
you have
thin.
yeah, this is real
Yeah.
thin and it has a flat head.
Yeah,
So
so that's good. Okay, I think we've touched on that.
I think we're ready to start so we could like see like how we go ahead and get started with this.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this up right. I left my fabric at home, so I do have some.
I'm gonna just turn this off.
Yeah, thanks to the fabric exchange, the fabric square exchange, I got some extra fabric. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started over here if you guys wanna see. I don't know, Pat, you want me to take, well,
Yeah.
you wanna start, I'll start. Okay.
Definitely, if you got
Let me
one
get this
there,
out
or
of
do
the
you
way.
want to do with this?
Yeah, we can start with that since you already have it done. Okay.
So I lost my other little piece of paper. No, I didn't.
Okay, so this is the challenge I find that I had when I first started paper piecing, and I find that like a lot of people tend to have that like kind of little obstacle. It's getting started. Because once you
Every
get
time though.
yeah, because
Even if you walk away and 2
yeah,
days
it's
go
like,
by.
what happened? Yeah, I always have to like leave my stuff like numbered and set out or start over again
Yeah.
sometimes. So I have to admit though, I have gotten better with that. Okay, so we had said about having like a regular foot. You know, this is like a lot of us usually sew with something like this. It's like a clear 1/4 inch foot. I recommend an open toe foot. Open toe foot really allows you to place your needle right where you need it to start, and you can see everything that you're doing also, and really lead it up with your stiletto right up to wherever you have to sew. So again, like I said, you can use this, but it's much easier on the eyes to use open toe foot. That's what I use, because I can't see that well anymore.
I don't have any thread in mine.
Oh,
You got yours?
yeah, you want to start over here, or you want me to start over there?
I'll just have you go.
Okay, so just to start, you always got to remember you're gonna work in a mirror image, right? So you're gonna be sewing on the part where you actually have your printed image and the numbers, and that's what confuses people because they're like, what side? Because you're working like in reverse, kind of.
So, maybe, may I help you?
Of course, please do.
Okay, put your fabric down on the table
Face down.
Face down.
with your numbers. I'm sorry. I
Oh, no,
said it wrong. Okay, fabric up. What you're sewing is up. Your numbers are down, and then you're gonna peek under it for the one you're gonna sew. You're gonna see if there's enough backing, enough fabric there, and then you're gonna flip and sew. And if you can do that every time,
So right sides of the
fabric.
template and the fabric outwards.
Yes.
So back side, yeah, the
Yeah,
back side.
and then numbering down, and the
See-
fabric up. You're looking at what you're gonna sew.
And I start a little bit different.
Okay.
Okay, so normally this is what I would do. So this is my pattern. I'm gonna get started, right? So we have 1 in the middle, 2 and 3. So what I do is I look at it and I use a card. Like some kind, this is just a piece of cardstock. What I find useful is, you know, when you go to like Road and everybody's giving out those thin like advertisements for quilt shows, I always grab those. So what I do is I go, so from here, this is 1 and 2. I go ahead, put my piece of paper down on my card, and I'll go ahead and put a fold right there. So then what,
good.
so then I'll go ahead, so we know this fabric is going to be like our big part right there, right? So Pat already has this where she kind of somewhat shaped it for that particular portion of the pattern. I'm kind of a sloppy paper piecer, like I'll just use a big old piece of fabric, because you can really like cut it down,
I
right?
wouldn't normally do this.
Yeah, normally like I would just have like, you know, but again, depending if you have like a big project like that one that I worked on recently, you kind of want to like have everything accounted for. So remember, you're going to be working outward, right? So you're starting here, this is going to be on the outside. And then you're going to get whatever your number 2 is right here. In this case, it's right here. And it's going to be right sides together. Right sides together. And this is where the actual light table comes in handy.
Yes.
The light table I find is probably most beneficial with paper piecing when you're first getting started, because you really want to get that first placement. Everything else, like once you get those first stitches down and you have that placed, everything kind of comes together.
But here again, they can hold it up to the light.
Yeah, you can hold it up to the
You
light.
don't have a
but,
light
you know,
box. You can
we're gonna use that.
Go home and move ahead without it, you know.
And boom, you see right here, we have, wait, what's going on here?
There you go.
Okay,
No, it's there, further up. There you go. It's your seam.
oh, but the A's not big enough.
Oh, I was looking this side. Your A is here. You're doing this side. You're doing the 2, which is this one.
Yeah, but what about A?
This.
Oh, there we go, there we go.
Well, here's your fabric.
No, this is 3. This
Yeah.
piece is too small. Look at it. We're having technical difficulties. One moment, please.
If you move it over, because it's not gonna. Maybe I did cut it too short.
It's a little short.
It can go down. Actually, you can make it.
Here, but you know what?
Do it better. Yeah.
We're improvisational here, so we're
Yeah,
gonna go ahead and we're gonna do it the way I would normally do it at home.
There
If
you go.
this is why my room is always a mess, because I'll just go ahead and cut it. And who is
that's
it? Who is it? Like
exactly.
Jenny Tone that just throws it in. So I'm just gonna use or Eleanor Bruce. She'll just toss it. That's why my room always looks like that. So we're just gonna use whatever piece of fabric, right? Which this is actually more real life, because you're probably gonna have something that's gonna be oversized, right? So we're gonna go ahead and add that down. And now see right here, look at, so you see how that fabric, how those lines are all within the fabric? You know your piece is good to go right there. So we're gonna get this piece, and you always wanna make, you know, 1/4 inch, keep our 1/4 inch in the game right there, see? It's kind of big, right? But this is where our 1/4 inch ruler is gonna come into place, because that wonky piece, it's all over the line. Yeah. Yeah. And what we're gonna do with this little piece here is this is gonna be our little corner. We're gonna put it right sides together. So you're gonna put the fabric right sides together, flip it. And then this is like where we talked about, I think Patty said she uses the glue stick to put her stuff down. Pat doesn't, Manny uses,
does.
I use glue.
Yeah.
Sylvia
Just on
uses
the
glue.
first strip.
See,
yeah.
what I'll do, because I got stuff to do and I don't have time to be looking for things sometimes. Because, you know, I'm so busy. Okay, hold on one second.
I thought I was gonna sew with no thread.
Right? Okay, and I'm gonna get it going here. I promise. You know, we had talked about threads too. I also like Aurifil. Aurifil's a good thread to use.
Yeah. And it goes forever.
Yeah, it does.
This
Like I've
is
had this
Aurifil.
wool forever. Let me just thread my machine real quick. If this was a race, I'd win right now. I get to thread this thing quick.
Said Jonomi.
I love those strip lights.
They're the best, right? Okay. See, I wish I had some like some hold music or something while we're doing this. But boom, there we go. Okay, there we go. Okay, so what I normally do at home, again, this is where, you know, we're starting with our first stitch. We have everything set out right here, right? And again, you can use glue, you can use tape, you can use pins. What I do really quick is grab it and then bring it over here. Right? Yeah, it's like quick, you know? Yeah.
When you have your pieces big enough, sometimes you can do that.
Yeah, if you have big enough pieces, like if it just kind of like shifts a little bit, it's not gonna be the worst thing in the world. So this is what I really like to do. This is why I like the open toe foot. You can bring your needle down, and I would say right before the line that you're going to sew on.
Like about 1/8 or so.
You drop your needle, put your foot down. Okay, I gotta take my shoe off now because you know I'm sewing. I was like
Madeline, start walking around.
I gotta take that
barefooted.
shoe off. Okay. So now, right now I have mine at a 2.2, my stitch length. It is recommended with paper that you do a little bit, like maybe a 2.1. And
A little
really,
tighter.
my personal reason for not wanting to reduce my stitch length so much is often we have to take stitches out, right? It happens, right?
Ripping's part of this.
Yes, it is, and it drives you insane when your stitches are like a 2.1, a 1. What did Manny say? 1.5. I'm like, that's an exercise in insanity. Like I don't want to drive myself crazy. I just want to have fun and sew.
Exactly.
So now we're gonna go ahead and we're
But you
going
have to lessen it a little bit, because at the end, the threads will.
True. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Pat, making me feel bad. Okay. I'm gonna take mine down to a 2, And we're gonna go ahead and go down our line. And right before you get to the end of the line, you want to, hey, somebody's playing footsies with me. I'm just saying, you play footsies with me, you have to buy me a drink when the bar opens. Okay, so we're gonna go just maybe like maybe 2 inches beyond the line, right? Or 2 steps, 2 stitches beyond. So what we're gonna be left with is, we're left with this. So we have our fabric right sides together and we have this, right? So look at, boom, we flip that and we have our first line.
That's where you iron.
So here, this is where we iron, which,
Here it's on.
okay.
But you'll have to do it on here.
Boom, we just happen to have an ironing board just all crooked here, like Bugs Bunny style. Okay, well, you know what? This is a good intro. This is a good intro to one of the other tools that we had talked about. So, you know, with paper piecing and I think quilting in general, right? There's like a million notions and a tool that does everything. So, you don't necessarily always have to have an iron. You know, this is something that you can do with this, which is a seam presser. And it's just like this little, you know, little wooden thing, and you just get your.
It's better if you iron it, but this works.
It is. You have a crisper line, but you know, in a pinch, this will work. Or sometimes you even have like, oh, you know what? I need to get paid for. I need to get paid from the lady who sells these because I've just pushed this a lot. I really like this because it has a point turner, and then it also has this that you can push your seams down with. So you can just give it a little. Beep, 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 right there. Okay, so this is where the special ruler comes into place, right? The ad, so I had like little sound effects, right? So,
Did you find it?
yeah, so now what we have right here is we do not have a 1/4 inch seam, right? We have like, I don't know what that is. It's just, it's a lot extra. 3/8, a half,
Maybe
a
some
1/4.
16ths.
So what we're gonna do is,
Yeah.
okay, so, oh, you know what? I have a,
Do you have an ironing pad?
boom.
I'm gonna check
You know
it
what?
out.
These, you know how you buy these or somebody gives you one, you're like, what am I gonna do with this tiny little
Yeah,
cutting?
I love
You
that.
can paper piece with it, cause it's
Yeah,
small.
perfect.
So we're gonna put this down.
We're gonna put this
Oh,
in.
oh, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, I already. Okay, so now, what we have going on here is you have where we folded the fabric, folded the paper, and now we have the fabric. So what you do is you put that down, and with this ruler, 1/4 inch ruler, look at you, put that there, look at that, it was almost a perfect 1/4 inch.
How did you do that?
You know what?
amazing.
Magic like that. So just with
She's
your
got
rotary
another
cutter,
good tool, really.
this is another really good tool. Thank you, Manny, for recommending this awesome rotary cutter. Anybody who has any problems with their hands, I highly recommend it.
This is the old one, and that one's got ball bearings in it. So if you got arthritis starting up, it's
It's a really good rotary
It
cutter.
doesn't have the safety thing on it.
What's the name
This
of
one has
it?
the safety.
You know what? This is from a company called something. I'm not real sure, but yeah. But you know, I think Missouri Star is selling those right now. Yeah, I think Manny mentioned they were like $20 through Missouri Star. I think we bought that at a store near the retreat for $25. But you know what? I highly recommend it. Everyone who bought one is very happy with them, right? Where Patty's at, two Patty's around it. Okay.
Ándale.
So now we have this. Oh, okay, so now we have this, right? But look at, we have another place that we needed to go ahead. We have our next section, right? So what we're gonna do now is put your paper, put everything face down, and let's see. Okay, so we're going on to section 3. We're gonna get our little piece of paper out, put it against the line, and fold the paper over. So now we get our 1/4 inch ruler again. We butt that up against our little card, and then we use our rotary cutter to cut that, or don't cut your hand off. So there we go. Boom, and now we have a 1/4 inch and you're back on track. And that big old piece of fabric that you had is gone. So now we're gonna get our piece number 3.
Yeah, you got that?
Yeah, and we're going to put that, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect or whatever, so we're just gonna
Now
kind of
here's
put
where
that.
you could fold it, like I say, you got the picture up and the fabric up and you got the paper down, and then you fold it like that. And that's where, it's kind of the same thing you're doing.
Yeah,
And then you put,
see, this makes a little bit sense because we already know this is a 1/4 inch, right? And we used our 1/4 inch ruler. So we're gonna place this kind of semi, whatever, you know, we just wanna make sure you kind of, you know, it's gonna fit, right? It's gonna fit-ish. Yeah, it's gonna. We're gonna make it fit, you know. We're gonna make it fit because we're can-do kind of people. So now, again, this is a place right here where you would normally put a pin in or tape or something, but no, we're gonna do it fast. we're gonna flip it. Yeah, exactly.
I used to tape those.
Whatever you do, don't let that go. Keep it there. You're still holding it. So now we're gonna bring that over here. We're gonna drop
You don't
our
pin it
needle
or anything?
a couple, like right before the line, and put that down. And now we're gonna sew our straight line. And we're just gonna go, go, go. And okay, this is where the stiletto comes into play because I'm doing mine kind of all wonky right now. But see, when you have the stiletto, it really allows you to see, to follow it, and you can act, and you really can lead it a lot easier. Because you could kind of wing it and it'll still do it, but your line won't be as crisp. But see how like easy it is? Just feed it through, feed it through, feed it through. It keeps going. Stitch, 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 stitch. Couple a little bit after. Yeah, please do. I've had a lot of bad rotary cutting accidents recently. I don't want to have another one. Okay, so now we have this right here. So we go ahead, flip it. And again, if we had an iron, we could iron. Okay, let's do this. We're gonna use this. We're gonna use this. We're gonna use this little thing here. And ta-da! One of the blocks is made. I would highly recommend. Don't cut them. Don't cut them yet. Cut them at the very end. So you'll have fabric. You know, while you're actually, you know, constructing your pattern. You know, it's going to look kind of wonky. It's not going to look like what it's ultimately going to look. But once you go ahead and you have everything placed, and you're ready to, you know, construct your, then you go ahead and cut it. You know, one thing I really would like to cover are the pieces, Pat, that don't have any paper piecing. Because, you know, this pattern has some pieces that are just square. They're all.
We have a question.
No, I'm just kidding. Yes.
Do you use your 1/4-inch ruler, when you're cutting it down, do you use your 1/4-inch ruler to cut all the way around the paper? Or do you just trim it down to exactly the end of the paper?
You use it on your seams, really.
No, and when you trim that down, now that it's
No,
done.
so what you would do with this is what I do is once you go ahead and you get this,
You could lock off some of the big stuff.
yeah, you could cut some of it off, but what I do is I just get a regular ruler.
I'm just thinking like when you sew that to the second square.
Yeah.
Okay, no, what
Like
I
seam
do
allowance?
to keep your seam allowance consistent, I'll go by with a regular ruler and make sure that your 1/4-inch, that you're measuring your 1/4-inch against your ruler, and then I'll cut it and square it up against my ruler. But you're going to be using the outside line of the pattern.
Okay.
Not the actual dotted line that's around. You're going to want to use the hard
When you're
solid
sewing
line.
in pieces.
When
That's
you're,
where I said if you stick a pin in this corner and then push it through to the other piece with the right sides together, and you're kind of getting those points so that they meet.
Okay.
yeah. But see, I'll just leave it like that. Personally, that's how I do it. You know, because it's you know,
Yeah,
it's less
exactly.
precise. I feel like, you know, not that it's less precise. It's just easier for me.
It all
I'm
has,
slow.
all of this has paper. Maybe you meant this, but I have
Yeah. That's what I meant. So with these pieces, some of this block, if you take a look at your pattern, has these pieces that don't necessarily include any paper piece, and they have no seams.
You do. You have to.
Well, they have that one, but like as far as like before the construction, you're just cutting a piece of fabric
Yeah.
down to whatever that piece is.
Yeah.
So if you look at some of the blocks if you have your pattern with you, the two top ones will be paper pieced where you're actually going ahead and, you know, doing some stitching on them. There we go.
This is the one that shows the.
Perfect. Here we go. And then these pieces right here, like this piece, this piece, this piece, you're actually just cutting the fabric down to this piece. And what I did with these to just keep them straight, I didn't just keep them and just sew them. I actually cut the fabric the exact size of these papers, and then I just put a pin in them to keep those together.
Yeah.
Because once you start constructing your block, then you'll.
And you could use the adhesive there too.
Oh yeah, you can
That
use
would
the
work
adhesive.
nicely.
You can use
Because they'll
tape.
move around. Yeah. And besides, they're narrow. They're small.
Yeah, and they're kind of narrow. So,
Yeah.
is it? You think it's too much detail?
Without the steps in between.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm anxious to get
Yeah.
started.
They want to see it, do
Yeah,
it,
because
see
I'm
it.
not sure.
Yeah.
what
No,
it
you know
was.
what? See, I highly recommend like starting to like try it, especially with the whole.
Get
You know,
that first one first.
get that first seam, because once you get the first seam down, it's easy. It's, you know what? It's like crazy quilting. you know, once you get the first like lines down, it's easy just to fold and do whatever you
Yeah,
have to do.
and I would follow it like A, B, C, D, and E. I would do it in that order because you're practicing, basically.
Instead of 1, 2, 3, it's ABC?
Yeah, and that's the big parts. And there's 1, 2, 3 within the A, and 1, 2, 3 within the B. And then there's 4 pieces in the C and the D. So then that way you get these
You
pieces.
just start in little squares, and it's like, and once you get those squares done, especially with the other pieces just being just a piece of fabric, you know, it comes together very quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be happy to, I hope that you can enjoy this, because if you can practice it, in other words too, do some more. Do 2 or 3 or 4. If you mess the first one up, try again, you know.
You know what, seriously, and if anybody has any questions or
Yeah.
has any anything further with this, I have a ton of newsprint paper at home. I'd be happy to. I have an old printer that I just found a bunch of ink for. Like, yeah, so let's make some paper piecing things. You know, I have some other things here too. If you guys just want to take a look. It's different projects that you can paper piece, and if you look at some of these like stuff back here, I wanted to show the difference with some of the stuff. Like, see that square up on the top, that heart? I just use regular white copy paper for that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like a specialty paper.
Yeah.
And then here's like, I don't know if anybody wants to get more complicated and make a heart. I don't know. You want here? I'm sorry. Let me see if I have one. I'll get one for you, Marie. If not, we'll have to wait till next week.
And here's another one.
Just pass this one to Marie.
This is a class that I taught. She did too.
There's a heart.
This is another class that I taught, and it's called Confident Beginner. So, and this uses 2.5 inch roll. Jelly roll. Yeah, this uses jelly roll.
You know what I have? You want to start?
That's the butterfly. This one has 100 pieces or more. There's the heart. Tiny little cactus frame. This is, looks like pots.
Wait, I heard my name.
It's real cute. A lot of angles too.
You said this one the one from Joanne.
Another butterfly.
And you can use a jelly roll.
I've done this without paper piecing and it's not easy at all. Another butterfly. This one has the embroidery.
You want to continue or pick up in a couple of months or something? This is confident beginner.
This is a stick. Okay, this is it.